A hospital room meant for healing turns into a cage when a pregnant woman on strict bed rest is repeatedly beaten with a belt by the mistress right on her hospital bed at her most vulnerable moment. What begins as cruelty behind a closed door quickly exposes a betrayal so cold it makes the fetal heart monitor falter and leaves the entire ward shaken. The husband does not stop it, he silently allows it. The mistress believes fear will erase the truth. But a desperate call reaches the one person they never expected, her father. He arrives calm, sets a trap, records their own words, and brings every wall down with evidence. Tell us where you are listening from, and leave a comment below. Stay with us. The arrest happens right in the hallway, and the truth hits harder than any blow. If you have ever been forced into silence, this story is for you. Lucia Hawthorne lay motionless on the narrow hospital bed, her body angled slightly to the left, as instructed by the obstetrician. She was 7 months pregnant, admitted 3 days earlier after severe abdominal pain and repeated uterine contractions. The diagnosis had been clear and frightening. Threatened preterm labor caused by prolonged psychological stress, absolute bed rest, continuous fetal heart monitoring, no unnecessary movement, no emotional agitation. The room was quiet in the way hospitals often were during late afternoon. The curtains filtered the daylight into a pale wash across the white walls. A monitor beside the bed emitted a steady rhythm, soft electronic beeps, marking the heartbeat of the baby inside her. Lucia kept one hand resting over her abdomen, not pressing, just feeling. Each sound anchored her to the fact that her child was still there. Her hospital gown was light blue, loose and clean, tucked beneath a thin white blanket that reached just below her ribs. An identification band circled her wrist. Her hair was unwashed, loosely tied, strands clinging to her temples. Her face carried exhaustion more than pain, the hollowed look of someone who had not slept properly in weeks. Stress had brought her here. Weeks of emotional pressure, isolation, and quiet fear. Her husband Richard had grown distant, his voice colder, his absences longer. And then there was Selina, the woman who had begun appearing in places Lucia never expected, in restaurants, in messages that arrived without a sender name, in whispered threats disguised as polite warnings Lucia had tried to endure. She had believed silence would protect her child. It had not. A nurse had just finished a routine check and left the room, promising to return shortly. The door clicked shut. Footsteps faded down the corridor. Lucia exhaled slowly, trying to steady her breathing the way the doctor had taught her. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Calm the uterus. Protect the baby. The handle turned again. Lucia looked toward the door, expecting the nurse. Instead, Selina Vale stepped inside. She was dressed in a deep red fitted dress, the color stark against the sterile white of the room. Her blonde hair was perfectly straight, her makeup flawless. High heels clicked softly as she closed the door behind her and locked it with deliberate care. Lucia's fingers tightened around the blanket. Selina smiled, not warmly. It was a smile sharpened by control. "So, this is where you ended up," Selina said quietly, lying down, finally. Lucia tried to sit up, then stopped, pain flashing through her abdomen. She stayed still, eyes fixed on Selina, heart pounding louder than the monitor beside her. "You should not be here," Lucia whispered. Selina stepped closer, stopping at the side of the bed. She looked at the monitor, at the slow pulsing line that represented the baby's heart. Her expression hardened. "They told you to rest," she said, "because you cannot handle stress." Funny, isn't it? Lucia reached weakly toward the call button, mounted near the rail, but it was just out of reach. Selina noticed and gently pushed Lucia's hand back down onto the blanket. "Don't bother," Selina said. "No one is coming." Her voice dropped, venomously calm. She began speaking about the baby, about how fragile things were at 7 months, about how easily stress could undo everything Lucia was trying to protect. Each word landed like a strike. Lucia shook her head, tears welling. "Please," she said, "leave." Selina did not. She reached into her handbag and slowly pulled out a black leather belt. The sound of the buckle echoed too loudly in the small room. Lucia's breathing quickened. Her hand flew to her stomach, instinctive, protective. "Stop," she whispered. Selina lifted the belt and brought it down sharply against Lucia's forearm. Lucia cried out, biting down on the sound as pain flared through her arm. The monitor beside her stuttered, the steady rhythm faltering for a moment before resuming at a faster pace. Selina struck again, then again, aiming at Lucia's arms and shoulders, areas half covered by the blanket, half exposed. Lucia curled inward as much as she could without moving her lower body, shielding her abdomen, her body trembling violently. "Quiet," Selina hissed. "You are not going to make a scene." Lucia sobbed, the sound breaking free despite her efforts. Tears streamed down her face. Her heart raced. The monitor beeped faster now, irregularly, reacting to the surge of stress hormones flooding her body. Selina leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You think lying here makes you untouchable? It doesn't. Not to me." She raised the belt once more, letting it fall across Lucia's upper arm, then paused, watching the monitor. The line spiked, then dipped. For a few terrifying seconds, the rhythm faltered. Lucia gasped, fear eclipsing pain. "My baby," she whispered. Selina's expression flickered, not with concern, but calculation. She stepped back, adjusted Lucia's blanket, smoothing it as if nothing had happened. She tucked the belt away. "Remember this," Selina said softly. "If you talk, if you try to fight, stress does the rest." She unlocked the door and glanced once more at the monitor before leaving. Lucia lay frozen, sobbing silently. Her arms burned, her body shook. The monitor beside her slowly stabilized, but the numbers remained uneven, fragile, her vision blurred. The room tilted. She focused on the sound of the heartbeat, clinging to it as darkness crept in at the edges of her sight. Then everything went quiet. Lucia lay alone in the hospital room after the door closed behind Selina. The silence that followed felt heavier than the violence itself. Her body remained curled on her side as instructed by the doctors, but her muscles would not relax. Her arms throbbed with a deep, burning ache. Her breathing was shallow and uneven. The fetal monitor beside the bed continued its soft beeping, but the rhythm was no longer steady. The numbers fluctuated, rising and dipping in small, frightening waves. Lucia stared at the screen through blurred vision, terrified by every irregular sound. She placed both hands over her abdomen, whispering silently, begging her baby to stay strong. She tried to calm herself the way the nurse had taught her. Slow breathing, gentle focus, no sudden movement. But fear kept crashing back into her chest. Her heart pounded too fast. Sweat dampened her temples. Tears soaked into the pillow beneath her head. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. Time lost its shape. Lucia turned her head slightly toward the door, listening. Every faint sound in the hallway made her tense. She expected Selina to return at any moment, or a nurse, or anyone, but no one came. Her phone lay on the small table near the wall, just beyond her reach. She stared at it, frustration and helplessness tightening her throat. She tried to lift her arm, then stopped when pain shot through her shoulder and down her side. Her breath caught, and the monitor responded with another sharp spike. She froze, afraid that even breathing might harm her child. The door handle turned. Lucia flinched violently. The door opened slowly, and Richard Hawthorne stepped inside alone. He wore a dark suit, perfectly pressed, as if he had come from a meeting rather than a hospital corridor. His expression was unreadable. He closed the door behind him without locking it and stood there for a moment, looking at Lucia as if assessing a problem rather than seeing his wife. "Richard," Lucia whispered. Her voice cracked. Relief and dread collided inside her chest. She reached weakly toward him, her fingers trembling. "Please," she said. "Something happened." Richard glanced at the monitor. He frowned slightly at the uneven rhythm, then looked back at her face. His eyes held no concern, only irritation. "You are unstable," he said. "The doctors warned you about stress." Lucia shook her head slowly. Tears slipped down her cheeks. "She came here," she said. "Selina, she hurt me." Richard sighed and took a step closer, stopping at the foot of the bed. "You need to stop imagining things," he replied. "You are in a fragile state." Lucia tried to sit up a little, then cried out softly as pain surged through her abdomen. She clutched her stomach instinctively, panic flooding her face. "The baby," she gasped. "I am scared." Richard looked away. "You are always scared," he said. "That is the problem." Lucia stared at him in disbelief. "Help me," she whispered. "Please." He did not move. Instead, he reached into his pocket and checked his phone. His posture remained relaxed, detached. The sound of the monitor filled the space between them, faster now, uneven. "This cannot continue," Richard said. "You cannot keep causing scenes." Lucia's lips trembled. "I did not cause this." Richard leaned closer, lowering his voice. "No one forced you to stress yourself into this condition. You did this." The words crushed her. She turned her face away, sobbing quietly. Her shoulders shook. Her breathing became erratic again, and the monitor responded immediately, its beeping sharp and insistent. Richard straightened and stepped back. "Calm down," he said coldly. "You are hurting the baby." "Never." Lucia pressed her hands tighter against her abdomen, desperate to regain control. "I need help," she whispered. Richard stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned toward the door. "I will get Selina," he said. Lucia's head snapped toward him. "No!" she cried. "Do not!" Richard opened the door anyway. Seconds later, Selina Vale walked back into the room. She looked composed, untouched by guilt or fear. Her red dress stood out violently against the pale walls. She smiled when she saw Lucia's pale face and trembling hands. "You called?" Selina asked sweetly. Richard closed the door behind her and leaned against the wall. "She is hysterical again," he said. "Make it stop." Lucia stared at him in horror. "You said you would help me," she whispered. Richard did not answer. Selina approached the bed slowly. "I told you," she said softly. "Stress does the work for us. Is a W." She pulled the black leather belt from her bag again, letting it hang loosely from her fingers. Lucia shook her head, tears streaming freely now. "Please," she begged. "The baby." Selina did not hesitate. She struck Lucia's arm once, then again, quick and controlled. Lucia cried out, her body trembling violently as she curled inward, protecting her abdomen. Pain shot through her limbs. Her breath came in sharp gasps. The monitor reacted instantly, the rhythm jumping erratically. "Enough!" Richard said suddenly. Lucia looked up, hope flickering again. "Enough noise," Richard clarified. "Someone might hear." Selina adjusted her aim, striking lower on Lucia's arm, then stepping back. Lucia sobbed uncontrollably, her strength fading rapidly. Her hands loosened their grip on her stomach as exhaustion overtook her. Selina smoothed the blanket back into place, hiding the marks. She adjusted Lucia's hair gently, mockingly. "There," she said. "Rest. To bid over." Richard stepped closer and looked down at Lucia's face. "If you tell anyone," he said quietly, "I will say you fell, or that you imagined everything. No one will believe you." Lucia closed her eyes, tears slipping silently down her temples. Richard turned toward Selina. "We are done," he said. They left together. The door closed behind them. Lucia remained alone, shaking, the monitor still beeping unevenly beside her as the room swallowed her silence. Lucia lay alone in the hospital room after the door closed behind Richard and Selina. The silence pressed down on her chest, heavy and suffocating. Her body remained curled on her side, exactly as the doctor had instructed. Yet nothing about her felt still. Pain pulsed through her arms, spreading into her shoulders in slow, burning waves. The fetal monitor beside the bed continued to beep, but the rhythm was no longer calm. The numbers flickered unevenly, climbing and falling without warning. Each irregular sound sent a jolt of terror through her chest. Lucia stared at the screen, her vision blurred by tears, afraid to look away in case the line disappeared entirely. She pressed both hands over her abdomen, fingers trembling. "Stay with me," she whispered silently. "Please stay." Her breathing was shallow and rapid. She tried to slow it, remembering the nurse's calm instructions. Inhale gently, exhale slowly, relax the body, reduce stress. But panic refused to loosen its grip. Her heart raced faster than she could control, and the monitor answered with sharp, erratic beeps. Lucia turned her head toward the door, listening. Every distant sound in the hallway made her flinch. Footsteps. A cart rolling past. Voices far away. None of them stopped at her door. She needed help. Her gaze drifted to the call button mounted near the bed rail. It was only a few inches away. Yet, it might as well have been across the room. She shifted her shoulders slightly, pain flashing instantly through her side. She gasped and froze, afraid the movement had already gone too far. The monitor spiked again. "No," she whispered. "I am sorry." She tried again, inching her arm forward. Her fingers brushed the edge of the blanket, then slipped. The effort sent another surge of pain through her abdomen, tight and crushing. Her breath hitched. Tears spilled freely now, soaking into the pillow. Lucia pulled her arm back, clutching her stomach protectively. Her entire body trembled as another wave of fear crashed through her. She felt the tightening deep inside, the unmistakable warning signs she had been told to watch for. The pressure, the sharp discomfort, the fear that her body was beginning to work against her. The beeping grew louder, more insistent. She shook her head weakly, as if denial might help. "Please," she whispered again, unsure who she was begging now. Her phone lay on the small table near the wall, its dark screen mocking her. She could see it clearly, but she could not reach it. She imagined dialing her father's number again, imagined hearing his voice, imagined safety. The thought hurt almost as much as the pain. Lucia squeezed her eyes shut as dizziness washed over her. The room tilted slightly, the ceiling swimming in and out of focus. She forced herself to breathe, counting silently, desperate to stay conscious. Her thoughts began to scatter. Fear tangled with confusion. Had she imagined it? Had it really happened? Her arms ached too much to deny it. The burning pain was real. The terror was real. The danger was real. A muffled sound came from the hallway, a cart rolling past her door. Lucia tried to call out. Her mouth opened, but only a faint, broken sound escaped her throat. It was swallowed instantly by the walls. She tried again, louder this time, but her voice cracked and failed. Her chest tightened painfully, breath coming in shallow gasps. The monitor responded immediately, the rhythm stuttering in alarm. Lucia felt herself slipping. She focused on the sound of the heartbeat, clinging to it as if it were a lifeline. Each beep became something she counted, something she held on to. 1, 2, 3, do not stop. Her hands trembled violently against her abdomen. Sweat dampened her skin despite the cool air in the room. Her hospital gown clung uncomfortably to her back. She turned her head again toward the door, hoping for movement, hoping for light, hoping for anyone. Nothing. Minutes passed, or seconds. Time dissolved into a blur of pain and fear. Another wave of tightness seized her abdomen, sharper than before. Lucia cried out softly, unable to stop the sound this time. Tears streamed down her face, her body shaking with the effort to endure. The monitor spiked again, the alarm tone sharper now, more insistent. It did not sound continuously, but it was enough to frighten her deeply. "I am sorry," she whispered again. "Please." Her vision narrowed. The edges of the room darkened, creeping inward. She felt light, almost detached from her body, as though she were floating above the bed. The sensation terrified her more than the pain. Lucia tried to move her legs, to ground herself, but the effort failed. Her body would not respond. Weakness spread through her limbs, heavy and numbing. Her breathing became uneven, shallow and quick. Each inhale felt insufficient. Each exhale felt like it might be her last. The room seemed too quiet, too still, as though the world outside had paused. The beeping from the monitor blurred together, rising and falling in uneven patterns. Lucia struggled to focus on it, afraid that if she stopped listening, it would stop too. She thought of her baby, small and fragile, dependent on her failing strength. The thought broke her completely. Fresh sobs shook her chest, though no sound escaped now. Lucia's head rolled slightly to the side. Her eyes fluttered. She fought to keep them open, terrified of what might happen if she let go. Another contraction gripped her, fierce and unforgiving. Her body tensed involuntarily, pain radiating outward. The monitor reacted instantly, the line jumping erratically across the screen. Then, slowly, the sensation began to fade. Lucia's muscles loosened against her will. Her hands slipped from her abdomen and fell weakly onto the blanket. Her breathing slowed, uneven, and shallow. The room dimmed further. The beeping softened. Her eyes closed. Lucia drifted into darkness as the monitor continued to record the fragile, unstable rhythm beside her. The door to Lucia's hospital room opened quietly as Nurse Emily Park stepped inside, pushing a small cart with medications and charts. She paused for a fraction of a second just beyond the threshold, her trained eyes scanning the space before she spoke. Something felt wrong immediately, though she could not yet say what. Lucia lay on her side, her body angled awkwardly, her face pale and damp with sweat. One arm rested limply on the blanket, fingers curled inward as if frozen mid-movement. Her breathing was shallow, uneven. The fetal monitor beside the bed emitted an irregular rhythm that made Emily's stomach tighten. "Mrs. Hawthorne?" Emily said softly. There was no response. Emily moved closer, setting the cart aside. She leaned over the bed and gently touched Lucia's shoulder. The skin was warm, clammy. Lucia stirred faintly, her eyelids fluttering but not opening. Emily glanced at the monitor. The numbers told a troubling story. The fetal heart rate showed repeated fluctuations within a short window of time. Not catastrophic, but not normal either. Especially not for a patient ordered to remain calm and still. Emily checked the chart clipped at the foot of the bed. Threatened preterm labor due to prolonged stress. Continuous monitoring. Avoid agitation at all costs. This does not add up, Emily murmured under her breath. She reached for the call button to summon assistance, then stopped herself. Lucia's condition was unstable, but not yet an emergency. Calling loudly could increase stress, which would only worsen things. Emily chose a quieter approach. She adjusted the blanket slightly and noticed faint discoloration near Lucia's wrist. At first glance, it looked like pressure bruising, but Emily leaned closer, her brow furrowing. The mark was darker, uneven, inconsistent with IV placement or accidental contact. She gently lifted Lucia's arm a few inches, careful not to cause pain. Another bruise emerged along the upper arm, partially hidden beneath the sleeve of the hospital gown. Emily's pulse quickened. These were not medical bruises. Lucia moaned softly as her arm was moved. Emily immediately lowered it back into place and spoke gently. "It is all right. You are safe. I am here." Lucia's lips moved, but no words came out. Her brow tightened in distress. Emily straightened slowly and looked around the room. The door was closed. The chair near the window was empty. No flowers, no personal items beyond the essentials. She checked the visitor log on the wall, 2 entries earlier that day. Richard Hawthorne, Selena Vale. Emily's jaw tightened. She turned back to the monitor and scrolled through the recorded data. Her finger traced the timeline, noting the exact minute when the first major fluctuation appeared. It aligned precisely with the recorded visitor times. Her concern deepened. Emily stepped into the hallway and closed the door behind her gently. She pulled out her phone and called Dr. Matthew Klein, keeping her voice low. "I am with Mrs. Hawthorne," she said. "There are irregular fetal heart rate patterns that do not match spontaneous stress response. I also see unexplained bruising." There was a brief pause on the line. "Are you certain?" Dr. Klein asked. "Yes," Emily replied. "I believe there was external agitation, possibly physical." "I am on my way," he said. Emily returned to the room and resumed her calm, professional demeanor. She checked Lucia's vitals again, documenting everything carefully. Blood pressure elevated, pulse fast. Signs consistent with acute distress, layered on chronic stress. Lucia stirred again, eyes opening slightly this time. Her gaze was unfocused, glassy with fear. "Do not be afraid," Emily said quietly. "You are not in trouble." Lucia swallowed with effort. Her lips trembled. Emily leaned closer. "Did someone hurt you?" she asked softly. Lucia's eyes darted toward the door. Her breath hitched. She shook her head almost imperceptibly, then winced as if the motion caused pain. Tears slipped silently from the corners of her eyes. Emily did not press her further. She understood the fear that kept victims silent. Instead, she nodded slowly, offering reassurance without demanding words. "It is all right," Emily said. "You do not have to say anything right now." Indecoden. She adjusted the monitor sensors to ensure proper contact, then increased the frequency of observation within her allowed scope. Each action was precise, controlled, non-alarming. When Dr. Klein arrived minutes later, Emily briefed him quietly just outside the room. He listened intently, his expression growing grave as she pointed out the timestamps and the bruising patterns. Inside the room, Dr. Klein examined Lucia carefully. He confirmed Emily's observations. The physical signs did not align with accidental movement. Combined with the stress indicators, the conclusion was unavoidable. "There has been trauma," he said quietly to Emily. "Whether emotional or physical, it is significant." Emily nodded. "I believe both." Dr. Klein ordered additional documentation, instructing Emily to photograph the bruises discreetly for internal medical records. He also requested that the fetal monitoring data be preserved without alteration. "No changes," he said firmly. "Everything stays exactly as it is." Emily followed his instructions to the letter. She recorded times, readings, observations, and actions taken. Each entry was factual, unemotional, precise. She knew how critical this documentation could become. Before leaving the room, Dr. Klein spoke gently to Lucia. "You are being monitored closely," he said. "Focus on resting. We are watching everything." Lucia nodded weakly, clutching the blanket with trembling fingers. After he left, Emily remained nearby, positioning herself at the station directly outside Lucia's room. She did not leave. She pretended to organize supplies, but her attention stayed fixed on the door. She glanced up at the ceiling and noticed something else. One of the hallway cameras appeared slightly misaligned, its lens angled away from the door it should have covered. Emily frowned. She made a mental note of it, then wrote it down privately. The pattern was becoming clear. Emily exhaled slowly, steadying herself. She had seen enough to know this was not an accident, and she had seen enough to know that someone was trying to make it look like one. She looked through the small window in the door at Lucia, lying pale and fragile, one hand resting protectively over her abdomen. The monitor continued its uneven rhythm, each beat a reminder of how close things had come to breaking. Emily straightened her shoulders. She would not let this be ignored. Lucia drifted back toward consciousness slowly, as if rising through deep water. The room felt distant at first, the sounds muffled and far away. Then pain returned in fragments, a dull ache in her arms, tightness in her abdomen, a dryness in her throat that made swallowing difficult. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her blurred into focus, white and unfamiliar. The fetal monitor continued its uneven rhythm beside the bed. Each beep reminded her that she was still here, and that her baby still was too. Lucia shifted her gaze toward the window. Evening light had replaced the pale afternoon glow. Time had passed, though she did not know how much. Her body felt weak, drained, as if every ounce of strength had been pulled from her. A memory surfaced suddenly, sharp and frightening. Selena, the belt, Richard's cold voice. Her chest tightened as fear rushed back in. Lucia's breathing quickened. She tried to calm herself, remembering the nurse's instructions. Slow breaths, gentle focus, protect the baby. She placed one trembling hand over her abdomen. The movement sent a warning pulse of pain through her side, but she did not pull away. The phone. The thought came with urgency. Her eyes darted toward the small table near the wall. The phone was still there, lying face up. Close enough now. Someone must have moved it nearer while she was unconscious. Lucia swallowed hard and reached for it. Her fingers closed around the cool surface with difficulty. Her hands shook so badly that she nearly dropped it. She unlocked the screen and stared at the contact list, her vision swimming. One name stood out above the rest: Victor Hawthorne, her father. For a moment, doubt crept in. Fear of making things worse. Fear of retaliation. Fear that she would not be believed. Her grip tightened on the phone as another small contraction rippled through her abdomen, reminding her how fragile everything was. She pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. "Lucia," Victor's voice answered immediately. The sound of it shattered her composure. Tears spilled freely as her breath hitched. "Dad," she whispered. Victor heard the fear instantly. His posture straightened on the other end of the line. "Where are you?" he asked. Are you safe? If yours, Lucia struggled to speak. Her throat felt tight, her words catching between sobs. I am in the hospital, she said. They said it was threatened preterm labor. I am scared. Victor's voice softened, but urgency threaded through it. What happened? He asked carefully. Lucia tried to explain, but the words came out broken. She came, she said. Selena, she hurt me. Richard let her. I think the baby is in danger. Her breathing became ragged as panic surged again. The monitor responded immediately, the rhythm faltering. Lucia, Victor said firmly, listen to me. Breathe slowly. You did the right thing calling me. She squeezed her eyes shut and tried to follow his voice, grounding herself in its steadiness. I do not know what to do, she whispered. You have already done it, Victor replied. Stay where you are. Do not confront anyone. I am coming. A sudden sound outside the room startled Lucia. Footsteps, voices. Her eyes flew to the door. Fear flooded her again. They might come back, she whispered urgently. They will not touch you again, Victor said. His tone changed, becoming controlled and resolute. I promise you. Lucia nodded weakly, even though he could not see her. Please hurry, she said. I am on my way now, Victor replied. I will handle everything. The call ended. Lucia lowered the phone slowly onto the blanket. Her hands continued to shake, but a small measure of relief settled into her chest. For the first time since the violence began, she was not completely alone. Outside the hospital, Victor Hawthorne was already moving. He stood in his office, phone still pressed to his ear as the call disconnected. The city lights beyond the glass windows of the high-rise flickered to life as dusk fell. His jaw tightened, his hand clenched into a fist at his side. He had heard fear in his daughter's voice before, but never like this. Victor did not hesitate. He grabbed his coat and strode out of the office, issuing quiet instructions as he walked. Cancel my remaining meetings. Call Sophia Bennett. Tell her to meet me at the hospital immediately. His assistant scrambled to comply. As the elevator descended, Victor replayed Lucia's words in his mind. Threatened preterm labor. Hurt. Aloud. Each phrase sharpened his resolve. He knew the signs of danger. He knew when silence meant coercion. And he knew what power could do when it went unchecked. Victor stepped into the waiting car outside the building. The driver pulled away from the curb the moment the door closed. Hospital, Victor said, fast. As the city blurred past, Victor made another call. His tone was calm, but beneath it lay steel. I need a discreet security presence, he said. No uniforms, no announcements. I will explain when I arrive. He ended the call and leaned back, eyes closed briefly as he forced himself to think clearly. Rage would not help his daughter. Precision would. He considered the facts as he knew them. Lucia admitted for threatened preterm labor due to stress, a condition that demanded calm and protection. Instead, she had been subjected to further trauma. That alone was unacceptable. If there had been physical harm, the consequences would be severe. The car slowed as it approached the hospital entrance. Victor opened his eyes. He would not storm in. He would not alert those responsible. He would observe. He would gather information. And he would ensure that nothing was erased or hidden before the truth came out. Victor stepped out of the car and looked up at the hospital facade, its windows glowing against the darkening sky. Somewhere inside, his daughter lay frightened and injured, fighting to keep her child safe. He adjusted his coat and walked toward the entrance, his expression calm and unreadable. The night was only beginning. Victor Hawthorne entered the hospital without drawing attention. He did not raise his voice or announce his presence. He moved through the lobby with measured steps, his posture calm, his expression controlled. To anyone watching, he appeared to be an ordinary visitor arriving late in the evening. Inside, every thought was sharpened by purpose. He checked the directory briefly, then headed toward the maternity wing. The lights were dimmer there, the halls quieter. Nurses moved with soft efficiency, shoes barely making sound against the polished floor. Victor noted everything. The cameras mounted along the ceiling, the placement of security desks, the flow of foot traffic. He stopped at the nurses' station outside Lucia's room. I am Victor Hawthorne. he said quietly. "Lucia Hawthorne is my daughter." The nurse on duty glanced at the screen and nodded. "She is resting," she replied. "Her condition is being monitored closely." Victor inclined his head. "I would like to speak with the attending physician and the charge nurse," he said, privately. There was something in his tone that made the nurse comply without hesitation. Within minutes, Nurse Emily Park joined them, her expression cautious but steady. Dr. Matthew Klein arrived shortly after, carrying a tablet under his arm. Victor greeted them both with restrained politeness. "I appreciate your time," Victor said. "I am here to ensure my daughter is protected." "It's Nate." Dr. Klein studied Victor carefully. "Mrs. Hawthorne is stable at the moment," he said. "But there have been concerning developments." Emily spoke next. "There are signs that her stress levels were elevated beyond what we would expect," she said, "and physical indicators that do not align with accidental causes." Victor listened without interruption. His face revealed nothing, but his attention was absolute. "I need everything preserved," Victor said when she finished. "All medical records, all monitoring data, no alterations." Dr. Klein nodded. "That has already been ordered." Victor turned to Emily. "Who entered her room today?" he asked. Emily checked her notes. "2 visitors," she said. "Her husband, Richard Hawthorne, and a woman named Selina Vale." Victor acknowledged this with a slight nod. "I want access logs secured," he said, timestamps included. He then lowered his voice further. "I do not want any visible change in routine," he added. "No warnings, no confrontations." Emily understood immediately. "We will maintain normal operations," she said, quietly. Victor requested a brief look at the fetal monitoring data. Dr. Klein pulled up the recordings, scrolling through the timeline. Victor watched closely as the irregular patterns appeared in clusters. "These spikes," Victor said, pointing at the screen. "They coincide with visitor times." "Yes," Dr. Klein confirmed. "Which suggests external stressors." Victor straightened. "Document that correlation clearly," he said. "I will need it later." He then asked to see Lucia. They entered her room together. Lucia lay resting, her face pale, eyes closed. The monitor continued its soft, uneven rhythm beside her. Victor did not approach the bed. He stood at a distance, watching her breathe. Emily adjusted a sensor gently. "She is sleeping lightly," she said. Victor nodded. "Do not wake her." He turned his attention back to the room. He noted the placement of furniture, the position of the door, the angle of the ceiling camera visible through the window. His eyes narrowed slightly. "That camera," he said. "It appears misaligned." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "I noticed the same thing earlier," she said. Victor did not comment further, but he filed the detail away. He stepped back into the hallway and made a quiet phone call. His voice was low, controlled. "I need immediate preservation of internal surveillance data," he said. "Yes, including secondary feeds and backup storage." He ended the call and turned back to Dr. Klein. "I will be arranging independent legal oversight," he said. "I want no data loss." Dr. Klein met his gaze. "Understood." Victor then requested a private room nearby. Once inside, he removed his coat and placed it neatly over the back of a chair. He sat down, resting his hands flat on the table. He called his lawyer. "Sophia," he said when she answered. "I am at the hospital. I need you here now." Her response was immediate. "What happened?" "Not on the phone," Victor replied. "Bring everything." He ended the call and sat in silence for a moment, forcing himself to remain calm. Emotion would cloud judgment. Precision was required. Emily knocked softly and stepped inside. "Security has been adjusted as requested," she said, discreetly. Victor thanked her. "I want a clear record of everyone who approaches her room," he said. "No exceptions." Emily nodded and left. Time passed slowly. Victor reviewed documents provided by Dr. Klein, reading each line carefully. He cross-checked times, names, readings. The pattern became undeniable. This was not coincidence. Sophia Bennett arrived less than 30 minutes later. She entered the room with a legal pad and tablet in hand, her demeanor focused. Victor briefed her quickly and precisely. "Threatened preterm labor due to stress," he said. then unexplained physical indicators and fetal distress during visitor windows. Sophia listened intently. "Do we have preserved data?" she asked. "Yes," Victor replied. "And we will have more." Sophia nodded. "Then we proceed quietly." Victor leaned back slightly. "I want a legal trap," he said. "Not a confrontation. They believe everything is hidden." Sophia understood immediately. "Then we let them believe it," she said. Victor stood. "I want them comfortable," he said. "Confident. That is when people make mistakes." Sophia smiled thinly. "I will prepare the framework." Victor glanced once more toward Lucia's room through the hallway window. She stirred faintly, then settled again. "Nothing changes yet," Victor said softly. "We wait." Outside, the hospital continued its quiet rhythm, unaware that every detail was now being watched, recorded, and protected. The trap was set. Richard Hawthorne believed the situation was finished. From his perspective, everything had already been handled. The hospital was quiet again. No alarms had sounded. No police had appeared. Silence, to him, meant success. That belief was what brought him back. He walked through the maternity wing with measured confidence, his footsteps unhurried. Beside him, Selina Vale moved with her usual poise, the deep red of her dress unchanged, her posture relaxed. She glanced around the hallway, noting the absence of staff nearby. "They bought it," she said quietly. "No one questioned anything." Richard nodded. "I told you, hospitals see this every day. Emotional women, complications, they assume." Selina smiled, especially when the husband stays calm. They stopped outside Lucia's room. The door was closed. The small window revealed only a dim interior. Richard checked the hallway once more before opening it. Inside, Lucia lay on her side, pale and still. Her eyes were half open, unfocused. The fetal monitor continued its soft, uneven rhythm. The sound filled the room like a nervous heartbeat. Lucia's gaze shifted toward the door when they entered. Fear flashed across her face. Her hands tightened over her abdomen instinctively. Selina closed the door behind them. "Relax," Selina said softly. "We are not here to cause trouble." Lucia did not respond. Her breathing quickened. Richard stepped closer to the bed. "You need to stop this," he said. "The doctors are watching your stress levels." Lucia swallowed. "Please," she whispered. "Just leave me alone." Selina laughed quietly. "You see," she said to Richard, "she always plays the victim." Lucia's eyes darted toward the door, then back to them. "They know," she said weakly. The nurse saw. Richard's expression hardened. "You are imagining things again." Selina leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "Even if she did," she said, "what proof is there?" She gestured casually around the room. "No marks anyone can see. No witnesses." Lucia flinched. Richard glanced at the monitor, then back at Lucia. "You need to cooperate," he said. "If you keep making noise, you will only make this worse for yourself." Lucia shook her head slowly. Tears slipped down her temples. "I was hurt," she said. "You let it happen." Selina scoffed. "Do not exaggerate. It was barely anything." End quote. Her words hung in the air. Lucia's breath caught. The monitor reacted with a brief spike, then settled again. Richard frowned at the sound. "See what you are doing," he said. "You cannot control yourself." Selina stepped closer to the bed, lowering her voice. "You really should learn when to stay quiet," she said. "The first time was a warning." Lucia closed her eyes, trembling. Richard rubbed his temple, irritation clear. "This is exhausting," he said. "I am tired of cleaning up after you." Selina tilted her head, studying Lucia. "She will not talk," she said confidently. "She is too afraid." Lucia's eyes opened again. "I am not lying," she whispered. Selina smiled. "It does not matter," she replied. "No one believes a woman in your condition. They will say you fell. Or panicked." Richard nodded. "Exactly." Lucia stared at him, stunned by the ease with which he dismissed her pain. "You said you would protect us," she said faintly. Richard looked away. "I never said that." The fetal monitor beeped unevenly again, reflecting Lucia's rising distress. Selina noticed and smirked. "See?" she said. Stress does everything for us. She reached into her bag and briefly touched the edge of the black leather belt inside, not removing it, just enough for Lucia to see. Lucia gasped softly and recoiled as much as her weakened body allowed. Richard raised a hand. "Not again," he said. "No need," Selina shrugged. "I am just reminding her." Lucia's hands shook violently as she clutched her abdomen. Tears streamed freely now. Her breathing became shallow and rapid. "You are hurting the baby," she whispered. Selina rolled her eyes. "You hurt the baby when you refuse to behave." Richard leaned closer to Lucia, lowering his voice. "If anything happens," he said, "it will be because you could not stay calm. Understand?" Lucia stared at him in horror. From just outside the door, Victor Hawthorne stood silently. He had arrived minutes earlier and positioned himself in the hallway where the wall curved slightly, out of direct sight from the room. He did not move. He did not interrupt. His phone rested in his hand, recording quietly, legally, every word that drifted through the partially open window near the door. Beside him, Sophia Bennett stood still, her expression unreadable. Inside the room, Selina continued speaking, unaware. "You really thought you could fight this?" she said, "after everything was taken care of?" Lucia shook her head weakly. "I just want to be safe." Richard laughed softly. "Safe from what? Your own imagination." The monitor beeped again, sharper this time. Selina sighed. "You see?" she said. "Even now." Lucia whimpered, her strength fading. Her eyes fluttered, her face draining of color. "That is enough," Richard said. "We should go." Selina nodded. "She is done." Easer. She leaned closer one last time. "Remember," she whispered, "you say nothing." They turned and walked toward the door. Victor stepped back into shadow as it opened. Richard and Selina passed without seeing him, too focused on their own confidence to notice anything else. The door closed behind them. Victor exhaled slowly, his face calm but his eyes cold. He looked at Sophia. "That," he said quietly, "was everything we needed." "It's not ogres." Inside the room, Lucia lay shaking, unaware that the words spoken over her bed had just sealed their fate. The hallway outside Lucia's room shifted from quiet to tense in a matter of seconds. Victor Hawthorne stepped forward as the door closed behind Richard and Selina. His posture was calm, his movements deliberate, but the authority in his presence was unmistakable. Sophia Bennett moved beside him, already dialing a number on her phone. "Now," Victor said quietly. Sophia ended the call and nodded. "They are on their way." Victor turned toward the nurse's station. "Please ask security to remain nearby," he said. "There is going to be a formal intervention." The charge nurse looked at him, startled by the firmness in his voice, but complied immediately. Victor then entered Lucia's room. Lucia lay trembling on the bed, tears streaking her face. Her breathing was uneven, shallow, her hands still clutched over her abdomen. The fetal monitor continued its unstable rhythm, a constant reminder of how fragile the situation remained. Victor approached slowly, stopping at the side of the bed. He did not touch her at first. He lowered himself to her eye level. "Lucia," he said softly, "you are safe now." Her eyes widened when she recognized his voice. Confusion and relief collided in her expression. "Dad?" she whispered. "I am here," Victor replied. "No one will hurt you again." Sophia stepped inside behind him, followed by Nurse Emily Park and Dr. Matthew Klein. The room filled with quiet urgency rather than chaos. Emily moved to Lucia's side immediately, checking her vitals and adjusting the monitor sensors. "Breathe slowly," she said gently. "You are not alone." Lucia nodded weakly, tears still falling. Victor straightened and turned toward the door as footsteps approached from the hallway. 2 uniformed police officers entered, followed by hospital security and an administrator. Their presence transformed the room instantly, shifting it from a private space into a place of accountability. The administrator cleared his throat. "Mr. Hawthorne," he said, "we were informed of a serious concern." Victor met his gaze. "You were informed correctly," he said. "There has been violence against a patient under your care." The administrator's face paled. Sophia stepped forward and spoke calmly. "We are invoking patient protection procedures," she said. "All evidence has been preserved." One of the officers nodded. "We are here to assess and secure the situation," he said. Victor gestured toward the monitor and then toward Lucia's arms. "The patient was admitted for threatened preterm labor caused by prolonged stress," he said. "While under strict orders to remain calm, she experienced additional trauma." Emily stepped forward with a tablet in her hands. "These are the recorded fetal heart rate fluctuations," she said. "They align precisely with the times of 2 visitors." She tapped the screen, showing the timestamps. Dr. Klein spoke next. "The physical marks observed are inconsistent with accidental movement," he said. "They indicate external force." The room fell silent. The officers exchanged a glance. Sophia added, "There is also an audio recording obtained legally in a public hallway area." Victor held up his phone. "This device recorded statements made moments ago," he said. "Statements that confirm intent, coercion, and awareness of harm." The administrator swallowed hard. "Where are the individuals involved now?" he asked. Victor replied without hesitation. "They are still on the floor. They believe nothing has changed." The officers moved swiftly. Moments later, raised voices echoed faintly from the hallway. The sound of hurried footsteps followed, then the unmistakable click of handcuffs. Selina Vale was the first brought back into view. Her confidence had evaporated. Her face was pale, her posture rigid as officers guided her forward. The red dress that once radiated control now seemed garish under the hospital lights. Richard Hawthorne followed, his expression shifting rapidly from irritation to disbelief as he saw Victor standing beside Lucia's bed. "What is this?" Richard demanded. "You cannot be serious." Victor did not respond. An officer spoke calmly. "You are being detained for questioning regarding an alleged assault on a hospitalized patient." Selina shook her head sharply. "This is ridiculous," she said. "She is unstable." Lucia flinched at the sound of her voice. Emily immediately stepped closer, shielding Lucia slightly. Sophia addressed Selina evenly. "You may refrain from further statements," she said. "Your words have already been recorded." Selina's mouth fell open. "Recorded?" she repeated. Richard looked at Victor, anger flashing. "You set us up," he said. Victor's gaze was steady. "You spoke freely," he replied. "I simply listened." "Azaten." The officer turned Selina slightly, holding up a clear evidence bag containing the black leather belt. "This was recovered," he said. "Do you recognize it?" Selina's eyes darted away. The administrator looked visibly shaken. "This occurred in our facility," he said quietly. Victor nodded. "Which is why transparency is essential," he replied. "From this moment forward, nothing is hidden." The officers led Richard and Selina toward the door. Selina twisted back, fury and fear contorting her features. "This is not over," she snapped. Victor did not react. Once they were gone, the room seemed to breathe again. Lucia lay still, shock written across her face. Her hands trembled as Emily guided her breathing, speaking softly, grounding her in the present. "You did very well," Emily said. "You are safe." Dr. Klein adjusted the monitor again. The rhythm slowly began to stabilize as Lucia's breathing eased. Victor remained beside the bed, his presence steady and protective. "I am proud of you," he said quietly. Lucia's eyes filled again, but this time the tears were different, relief mixed with exhaustion. Outside the room, hospital staff gathered quietly. Phones were raised, then lowered as administrators intervened. Word spread quickly, but carefully. Inside, Victor looked at Sophia. "Next steps," he said. Sophia nodded. "Documentation is complete," she replied. "Law enforcement has custody. The situation is now public." Victor turned his attention back to Lucia. "Rest," he said gently. "The hardest part is over." Lucia closed her eyes, breathing more evenly now, the monitor reflecting a calmer rhythm beside her. For the first time since she had been admitted, the room felt like a place of healing rather than harm. And beyond its walls, the truth was already moving, impossible to stop. The news spread before morning. By the time the sun rose over the city, the hospital incident was no longer a private matter. Patrol cars had come and gone during the night. Statements were taken. Evidence was logged. By dawn, Richard Hawthorne and Selina Vale were no longer free to walk away from what they had done. Lucia remained in her hospital room, guarded quietly, shielded from reporters and unnecessary questions. The fetal monitor beside her bed now showed a more stable rhythm, though doctors warned that the danger was not entirely past. Stress still carried consequences. Protection remained essential. Downstairs, the legal process began to move with precision. Richard sat in a small interview room at the police station, his suit wrinkled, his confidence stripped away. The metallic hum of fluorescent lights filled the space. Across from him sat two investigators, their expressions neutral, their questions measured. "You were aware your wife was admitted for threatened preterm labor," one officer said. "Correct." Richard nodded stiffly. "Yes. And you understood that stress or agitation could place the fetus at risk?" "Yes." "Despite that knowledge, you allowed another individual to enter her room and cause distress." Richard clenched his jaw. "She was emotional," he said. "Unstable." "Isdao." The officer slid a tablet across the table. "This audio recording captures you, acknowledging the harm and instructing her to remain silent." Richard's eyes flicked to the screen, his face drained of color. At another desk down the hall, Selina Vale sat with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Her heels had been removed. Her red dress looked out of place in the sterile room. An officer placed a sealed evidence bag on the table between them. "Do you recognize this?" the officer asked. Selina looked away. "I do not know what you are implying." The officer tapped the bag. "It was recovered from your belongings. It matches marks documented on the victim." Selina's lips pressed into a thin line. "She provoked me," she said sharply. "She lies." The officer did not react. "Your statements at the hospital contradict that claim." By midday, formal charges were prepared. Assault of a vulnerable patient, endangerment of an unborn child, coercion, conspiracy to conceal harm. The severity of the charges shifted the tone immediately. At the courthouse, Victor Hawthorne arrived with Sophia Bennett at his side. He moved calmly through the steps, his presence drawing quiet attention. He did not speak to reporters. He did not acknowledge cameras. His focus remained singular. Inside the hearing room, the air felt heavy with consequence. Lucia was not present. On medical advice, she remained under care, her condition too fragile for public proceedings. Instead, her voice entered the room through documentation, recordings, and sworn medical testimony. Dr. Matthew Klein testified first. He explained the diagnosis, the risk factors, and the timeline. He described the correlation between fetal distress and visitor presence. He spoke clearly, clinically, without emotion. Nurse Emily Park followed. She presented her observations, the bruising patterns, the misaligned camera, the fear she had seen in Lucia's eyes. Her voice did not waver. The judge listened intently. The audio recording was played next. Richard's voice filled the room, calm and dismissive, acknowledging silence, control, and consequences. Selina's voice followed, taunting, confident, careless. The effect was immediate. Selina sat rigid, her earlier bravado gone. Richard stared straight ahead, his expression fixed, his hands clenched. The prosecutor spoke next, outlining the legal implications. "This was not a moment of lost temper," she said. "It was a deliberate act carried out against a woman ordered to remain calm for the safety of her unborn child. The risk was known. The harm was foreseeable." Defense attorneys attempted to respond, citing emotional instability, misinterpretation, stress-induced hallucination. The arguments fell flat against the weight of evidence. Victor remained silent throughout. When it was his turn to speak, he rose slowly. "My daughter did not ask for power," he said evenly. "She asked for safety. She did not seek conflict. She sought to protect her child. What happened to her was not a misunderstanding. It was a choice." The judge nodded once. Temporary rulings were issued swiftly. Selina Vale was remanded into custody pending trial, denied immediate release due to risk of witness intimidation. Richard Hawthorne was placed under strict supervision, his access to Lucia legally revoked, his assets temporarily frozen pending investigation. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered as the defendants were escorted away. Selina avoided the cameras, her face hidden. Richard walked stiffly, his name already trending across news platforms. Headlines followed within hours. Hospital assault shocks city. Pregnant patient targeted during medical crisis. Evidence reveals coordinated abuse. The narrative shifted decisively. At the hospital, Victor returned to Lucia's room as evening approached. He stood quietly at her bedside, watching her breathe. The monitor continued its steady rhythm, fragile but strong. Sophia updated him softly. "The court accepted all preliminary evidence," she said. "The next phase will proceed quickly." Victor nodded. "Good." Lucia opened her eyes slightly when she sensed his presence. "Is it over?" she whispered. "The truth is out," Victor replied. "That part is finished." Tears slid quietly from Lucia's eyes. Her body trembled, exhaustion finally releasing what fear had held tight. Victor placed his hand gently over hers, careful not to startle her. "You did not fail," he said. "You endured." Outside the room, the hospital resumed its routines. Inside, the balance of power had shifted completely. Richard Hawthorne's influence collapsed in real time. Business partners distanced themselves. Accounts were suspended, invitations withdrawn. The image he had built fractured under scrutiny. Selina Vale's name became synonymous with disgrace. Former allies vanished. Public sympathy evaporated. Neither could escape what had been recorded. As night fell, Lucia slept under careful watch, protected at last by systems that now worked in her favor. Justice had not finished its work, but it had begun, and it would not stop. Morning light entered Lucia's hospital room softly, filtered through pale curtains that muted its brightness. The night had passed without alarms, without urgent footsteps rushing down the corridor. For the first time since everything had unfolded, the air around her felt calm. Lucia lay on her side, her body still weak but no longer trembling. The light blue hospital gown rested loosely against her skin. One hand lay gently over her abdomen, rising and falling with each careful breath. The steady rhythm beneath her palm was there, consistent and reassuring. Her baby was alive. That knowledge anchored her more firmly than any words could. The fetal monitor beside the bed reflected that truth. The line moved smoothly now, the sound even and strong. The danger had not disappeared entirely, but it had retreated enough to allow hope to exist again. The door opened quietly, and Nurse Emily Park stepped inside. Her movements were unhurried, respectful of the fragile peace in the room. She checked the monitor, adjusted a setting, and smiled faintly. "Everything looks stable this morning," she said. "The baby is responding well." Lucia nodded, emotion tightening her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Emily squeezed her hand gently before stepping away. "You did very well," she said. "Just keep resting." After the nurse left, silence returned, but it no longer felt threatening. Lucia closed her eyes briefly, letting herself breathe without fear. The memories were still there, sharp and painful, but they no longer pressed against her chest with the same crushing force. Footsteps approached again, slower this time. Victor Hawthorne entered the room, his presence steady and familiar. He wore a simple dark jacket, his posture relaxed for the first time since arriving at the hospital days earlier. He stopped beside the bed and looked at his daughter. "How do you feel?" he asked softly. "Tired," Lucia admitted, "but calmer." Victor nodded. "That is enough for today." He pulled a chair closer and sat down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Words felt unnecessary. The quiet carried more comfort than conversation. "I am sorry you had to endure this," Victor said finally. "I wish I had been there sooner." Lucia turned her head slightly to look at him. "You came when it mattered," she said. "You believed me. Isn't a decisive." Victor's jaw tightened briefly. "I will always believe you." Outside the room, the hospital continued its routine. Doctors consulted charts. Nurses moved between patients. Life went on, indifferent to the pain that had passed through these walls. Yet something had changed. Lucia was no longer invisible. Over the following days, her condition continued to improve. The contractions subsided. The tightness in her abdomen eased. Each check brought cautious optimism, Doctors spoke in measured tones, careful not to promise too much, but the fear of immediate danger faded. Victor remained close, coordinating care quietly, ensuring that no unauthorized visitor came near. Legal boundaries were enforced without question. Richard Hawthorne's access was permanently revoked. Selina Vale's name was removed from every list. Lucia focused on small things, drinking water slowly, listening to the monitor, feeling the subtle movements beneath her hand. Each moment grounded her further in the present. One afternoon, Sophia Bennett visited briefly, standing near the door. "The legal process is moving forward," she said. "There will be accountability." Lucia did not ask for details. She did not need them. Knowing that it was handled was enough. As the week progressed, Lucia was transferred to a quieter room with additional safeguards. The change marked a shift, not just in care, but in mindset. She was no longer simply surviving, she was healing. On the 7th morning, the doctor entered with a small smile. "If everything remains stable," he said, "we can begin planning for discharge within a few days." Lucia's eyes filled with tears. The idea of leaving the hospital felt unreal, but comforting. That evening, as sunset painted the sky outside her window in soft colors, Lucia sat up slightly, supported by pillows. Victor stood beside her, watching quietly. "I used to think strength meant enduring everything alone," Lucia said. "Now I know it means asking for help." Victor nodded. "And allowing yourself to be protected." Lucia placed both hands over her abdomen and closed her eyes. "I want my child to grow up knowing safety," she said. "Not fear." "She will," Victor replied. "I will make sure of it." Days later, Lucia left the hospital under careful supervision. She wore a light blue patient dress, her steps slow but steady. The air outside felt different, cleaner, filled with possibility. She paused for a moment at the entrance, breathing deeply. The world had not ended, it had waited. At home, Lucia settled into a quiet routine: rest, gentle movement, medical checkups. Victor arranged everything, ensuring privacy and peace. The chaos of the past receded further with each passing day. News continued to circulate beyond her walls: court proceedings, public condemnation, the collapse of reputations built on silence and control. Lucia did not follow it closely. She did not need to. Her focus remained inward. One morning, weeks later, Lucia sat near a window as sunlight spilled across the floor. She held a small journal in her hands, writing slowly. Words came easier now. Not about pain, but about resilience, about survival, about the quiet strength of choosing to live. She paused and rested her hand over her abdomen as a gentle movement responded beneath her palm. A smile spread across her face. Victor watched from across the room, saying nothing, allowing the moment to belong to her. Lucia closed the journal and looked up. "I am ready," she said. "For what?" Victor asked. "For the future," she replied. Outside, the morning unfolded like any other. Cars passed. Birds called. Life continued. Inside, a woman who had been broken and silenced now sat whole again, carrying not just a child, but a future shaped by truth, protection, and healing. The past no longer defined her. The steady rhythm of life did.